Hey, what's good, guys? It's Clutch and Essam here, back with another video. And for today's, we're going to be talking about the Houston Texans. I'm going to talk about one certain hypothetical that's probably a little bit unrealistic at this stage in the rebuild for the Houston Texans, but I don't think it's nearly impossible, especially with how much turnover we've had on the roster, how much talent we've added. We added arguably the best available head coach in DeMeco Ryans this past offseason. We added two of the top 5 players in the NFL draft. We added an electrifying wide receiver. We added a ton of talent, a ton of depth, a good amount of veterans mixed in with some young firepower. And I don't think it's out of the realm to say the Houston Texans have a chance, even if it's a very, very slight chance, of making the playoffs. And my main reason for this is being how wide open the AFC South is. Nobody really knows who's going to win the AFC South. I mean, most people would probably have the Jaguars, but who really knows? I mean, the Titans, I think you can rule them out just due to their quarterback situation, going through OTAs and whatnot. It looks like their QB situation is pretty messed up. I mean, they don't really have a guy who can go through a normal drill, and it just doesn't look good over there. And in terms of the Indianapolis Colts, I mean, I guess you could possibly say them, but there's just a lot of unknown because of their rookie quarterback, and I guess you could say the same for us because we also have a rookie quarterback. But I feel like CJ Stroud is just much more NFL ready and much more acclimated to be an NFL type of quarterback right from the jump. And it's not a knock on AR-15, Anthony Richardson, but his style of play, I think, is going to take a little bit longer to develop in the NFL. Like, sure, he can come into the NFL and just be that runner. You can be like how rookie Lamar Jackson was. Obviously, he didn't start until maybe week 12, week 11, around there. But I don't think he's going to be able to have that much of an impact from day one from the start. So that leads me to think it's either between the Jaguars or the Texans. And I don't even think I'm being a little bit biased there. I think it's just the truth. The Texans, they added a lot of depth to this team in general. I was about to say offense, but to this team in general. I mean, on defense, they added a defensive leader in Jimmy Ward. They added Denzel Perryman. They added Corey Littleton, who's probably not going to have too much responsibilities on this team or get too much game time, but he's definitely going to be one of those leaders, one of those guys that the rookies and younger players like Christian Harris, Henry To'oTo'o, guys like that can lean on. We added easily the best pass rusher in the draft in Will Anderson. I mean, obviously it took a little bit to go get him, but now that he's on our team, it is what it is, and we added him, and he's probably going to be our edge one, like our number one edge from day one when we go over there to Baltimore and play the Ravens. We added a lot of talent. We have Jalen Petrie coming back, Derek Stingley coming back. We have a ton of talent all over the defense. Our secondary is probably our strongest point of the team in general, I think. I think the secondary is stronger than any positional group, whether it's offense or defense or even special teams. Our secondary just has a lot of depth, and it has depth that's not just okay players. Like, all of these guys on the special team or on the secondary are pretty good players, or at least once were pretty good players. We have Derek Stingley, going to be our cornerback one. It looks like he added some great weight this offseason, a lot of muscle mass. He just looks bigger in general, bigger calves, bigger thighs, bigger muscles, all of that. He just looks faster and sharper, going through his breaks and stuff during OTAs. So you have Derek Stingley coming back, Steven Nelson coming back. Yes, he does need a new contract, or at least wants a new contract. Not really going to get into this video, but we have him coming back. He was a great cornerback for us last season when he was playing, and I mean, he was great for us. Covered primarily the number 2 wide receivers, or at least sometimes the bigger guys, especially in that Broncos game. But yeah, our secondary is just full of talent. Of course, we got Shaquille Griffin as well. He's probably going to be like a cornerback 3, like a dev guy, more of a dev guy. Let's not forget, he did make a Pro Bowl a couple of years ago. What was it? I think like 2020, 2019, something around there. A lot of Jaguars fans say he wasn't the best for them, but then again, they didn't have the best scheme fit for him. I'm not going to make excuses because he was a little bit below average for them. But I mean, he fits a better scheme here. He's running a little bit of a similar scheme than what he did in Seattle Seahawks. We're going to run a similar scheme, I guess, like more of a cover 3, something like that, variants of cover 3, and that's kind of what Shaquille Griffin was pretty much standing out in Seattle. So, I mean, having him back in a familiar scheme for him, it should help him. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we also have Jimmy Ward, Jalen Petrie. Those guys should be a top 10 safety duo in the NFL, I think. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. I mean, of course, Jalen Petrie, he played like a top 10 safety last year alone. Jimmy Ward, he had his moments. He was good last season, but it's not like he was like I don't think I would say a top 10 safety, maybe like around 11, 12. But the duo of those two, not a rookie, but a second-year player coming in with the vet who has a ton of NFL experience, I think that's a great match. So that's a match made in heaven for them. So yeah, I think our secondary is the strongest point of this team. And if the defense can lean on the secondary, I think we'll get enough pass rush. Our defensive line is vastly improved from last year. Obviously, we didn't address the defensive tackle position as much as I would have hoped. We did add Sheldon Rankins and another guy from San Francisco. I can't think of his name right now. We did add a couple of guys like that, but I think we are still lacking more of a bigger dominant presence from the interior defensive line. Maybe Sheldon Rankins can hold his own, at least for most of the season. He's not a bad player. He's a great run stuffer. There was a stat, I believe it was posted by John Crumpler on Twitter, saying something like when Sheldon Rankins was on the field, teams average like 4 or 3.9 yards per carry versus when he was off the field, they would average like a whole yard more or something like that. So, I mean, adding a run stuffer from the interior position, that should be great for us. I mean, we desperately need that. Of course, on the edges, we got Jerry Hughes, Juan Anderson, Jonathan Bernard. So, and that rookie, Dylan Horton. Also got Dylan Horton. Maybe he could be an interior presence at times. Maybe he can rush from the inside. He can be like our Charles Omenihu type of player, like how D'Amico Ryans had Charles Omenihu in San Francisco. Maybe Dylan Horton can be our Charles Omenihu in Houston. They're both, I think, similar type of players. Like they have similar body type, similar weight and whatnot. So maybe it can be something like that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much enough of the defense. I didn't really get into linebackers too much, but we still don't really know what our linebacker core is going to exactly look like. I mean, I can take a guess. Probably going to be Denzel Perryman, Christian Harris, and maybe Toa can find his way in. I don't think so. I think he'll start. If he does start at any point in the season, it'll be more towards the middle / late of the season. Probably going to be like one of the veterans, maybe Kirksey. Maybe they play 2 middle linebackers. I'm not really sure. We'll find out closer to preseason and training camp. But let's talk about the offense a little bit. So on offense, I think our offensive line is probably going to be our strongest point of the offense in general. It should help Dameon Pierce a whole lot more. Last year, the offensive line wasn't really the best. It was probably like in the bottom 15 of the league, I think. At times, it looked pretty good, but then overall in general, I just think it wasn't the best. But having I think what can be a top 10, or at least a potentially top 10 offensive line this next coming season, I think Dameon Pierce can have a great year running the ball, as well as Devin Singletary. I think they'll both be able to have chances to catch the ball at the backfield, run the ball at the backfield, and they'll have time to find the holes, to get open into the open field. It's going to give time for C.J. Stroud to pass the ball, find open receivers, take off if he has to. This offensive line is going to be one of the strongest points on the team as well with the secondary. I think the top 2 strongest positional groups on this team is the secondary and offensive line. One on offense and one on defense, and I think that's pretty balanced. I mean, secondary, obviously, it's a huge part of a team, as well as the offensive line. I think the offensive line is probably the more important positional group on a team in general. I mean, you need a good offensive line to be able to function as an offense. To be able to score points as an offense, you need a functional offensive line, and without that, you're just simply not going to be too good on offense. You're not going to have time to run the ball, pass the ball, let receivers get open. You're just not going to simply have time to do any of that. And with the great offensive line, which it seems like we will have with Laremy Tunsil at left tackle, Kenyon Green, hopefully he can take that next step in his developmental stages of his career. I think he can. I'm not sure if he'll ever be like a great or elite left guard or offensive player in general, but I do think he can be at least a serviceable / good left guard for us. As far as center, of course, we got Juice Scruggs, rookie, and Jared Patterson. I would assume Juice Scruggs starts because he's a second rounder. Plus, he's a little bit younger than Jared Patterson. But it looks like we have a lot of depth on the interior offensive line, at least. And at right guard, we got Shaq Mason. Just give him that big extension. Very much worth it, I think. He's a top 10, probably even top 5 right guard in the league, I think. Right tackle, we got Titus Howard, who does want an extension, and I think he's going to get one, according to Aaron Wilson and a couple other reporters in Houston. I think he's worth it. Would I give him like 17, 18 million? I'm not really sure. But like 15 million, more so around that range. I think I'm definitely re-signing him. Yes, it is a lot of money. Acclimated into the offensive line alone. But when you have a rookie quarterback, when you have a young running back who looks like he can really take over games at times, I think it's important to have a strong offensive line, especially when you're this early into a rebuild. I don't want to say early, but especially when you have this much money with not a lot of players to pay. I think you have that ability to pay guys like Titus Howard, who's a staple to this team. And it's not like he's an old guy. I think he's only like, 26, 27. And offensive lineman can probably play like at a high level until like 33, 34. So he still has like 7 to 8 more years at playing at a pretty good level in the NFL. So I think locking him up should be a priority. I mean, one of the next priorities at least. It's not like we have anybody else to lock up. We added Dalton Schultz. He could be a good weapon for C.J. Stroud. One of those safety blanket type of players. He scored, I don't remember the exact number, but he had a lot of touchdowns for Dallas last year. He was one of Dak's favorite targets, especially in the red zone. He was a red zone monster for Dak Prescott, and I mean, that's very, very, very much needed for a rookie quarterback. Running backs, I mentioned a little bit them earlier, Dameon Pierce, Devin Singletary. They'll be great for us. I think Devin Singletary is a very, very underrated pickup for us. He was the starting running back in Buffalo, and he didn't have the best of starts to his career. I think he was like probably the definition of maybe like above average, like slightly above average. I don't want to say he was ever really top 10, but it's not like he was bad. He's probably always been like that middle of the pack running back. And having him as a running back too, especially with his explosiveness and ability to just make people miss as a running back too, I think that's great to have. Dameon Pierce, the running back 1, just having him to run over people, get those tough yards, and then Devin Singletary to be able to get the ball in space, third and shorts maybe, if you want to do like a pitch play or like a counter play, just get him to make one guy miss, get the first down on screens. You can do a lot of stuff with both of those running backs, even both of them on the field at the same time. And I think we will see that a little bit. We also entered Andrew Beck, who's probably going to be our fullback / tight end 3 maybe. And he could probably be used as kind of like a Kyle Juszczyk. I don't want to compare them because they're both different players, much different players. Kyle Juszczyk is more of that physically dominant fullback who's going to murder the person in front of him. And Andrew Beck just simply isn't, I don't want to say like that. He's not that good of a fullback, but he can be used as a utility weapon in the fullback spot, like on like passing plays, play action, in the red zone especially. The Houston Texans can have a shot at making the playoffs and even win the division. And it's because this division is just so weak. Like, there's no true number 1 team. Again, as I said, the Jaguars are probably going to be that going into the season. But even then, it's not like a guarantee that there'll be anything special. Like, last year is the first year that they were actually kind of good, somewhat good. And then we'll see how it goes this season. But I do definitely think the Houston Texans have a chance, even if it's a small chance. I do think they have a chance at possibly making the playoffs. But yeah, what do you guys think? It's kind of a reach, I know. Probably won't happen, but I don't think it's impossible. Just look at the New York Giants, for example. Look at what a good head coach can do for your team. Look at what a good pass rusher can do for your team, as in Kayvon Thibodeau. And what do you guys think about the video? Again, let me know down below in the comments. It's been close to your entertainment, and I hope you guys have a good day. Peace.